Hello and welcome back to TNWKS, the Now We Know show, the show where we discuss a topic of interest and by the end we will have learnt something new and hopefully you will too. I'm Zak.
I'm Buzz, and today we have our special guest, Chaz Albrighton, who is our prepper, aficionado and survivalist expert. And we're talking all about, in this episode, that question that always comes up with all the preppers, and that is to bug in or to bug out.
That is the question. If you enjoy the Now We Know Show podcast, support Zak Wylde Productions on Patreon or join our members on YouTube for early access, ad-free content and exclusive episodes.
So here we are, and in a different studio.
Yet again.
Yet again.
We've only just introduced the Tower Studio.
And unfortunately, we can't use the Tower Studio this week, so we've ended up having to come to our bigger studio, well, pseudo studio, let's say, because we're actually, you may notice in the background,
Yes.
we've actually got ourselves in the Zak Wylde Productions costume department. So we're surrounded by all sorts of different costumes.
Weapons, costumes, props, materials.
Makeup things.
I mean, I've got like a staghorn antler. Sorry.
You can have two.
Oh, there you go.
There you go, for the visual
Who
effect.
says we don't have fun on the Now
For
We Know
those
Show
people that are
podcast?
listening, yes, Zak has now acquired stag. What do you call them? Antlers,
that's what I
not
meant.
horns.
Honestly, I keep getting that wrong.
I know you'll
I'm
get
so
told off
naughty.
again. Antlers. Anyway, we're talking about whether we should bug in or bug out in a situation. So that's what we're going to deal with in a moment. But to start with, of course, it's our usual little spot of Weird and Wonderful. And Chaz, you're our special guest, and you've got a weird and wonderful story for us.
Just having a scout through, and apparently a junior doctor goes viral after rescuing a fish from his garden lawn in Newcastle.
Okay.
A fish has appeared on his garden lawn.
On his lawn.
Yes.
That poses the big question: how did the fish get there?
That wasn't the question I was going to go for.
What
I was
was
going to go for what fish was it?
Okay,
a
so we did.
dogfish or like
What
a-
fish was it?
like
How
a
did it
carp
get
or
there?
something?
And what did he do to save it?
Yeah.
There we go.
Well, it looks like it was a large goldfish, so probably from a pond.
Okay.
They're surmising that a bird probably had it, but
Oh,
he knows of no ponds around
That have.
close, so yeah.
Right, okay.
So we're not talking about the next stage in fish evolution.
No, it's got little legs, you know. and it's
You've
going
heard of flying fish, it could have been.
fish.
You know,
I mean, I've heard of rainstorms where fish have fallen from the sky.
It's a little catapult and it's like angry fish.
Do you know, in the medieval times, this would have been a sort of an omen, a potential
Absolutely, yeah.
something.
We're all doomed!
Apparently he's named it Alice after
Alice.
auto-correction went wrong. So he sent to somebody, it's alive, and it changed it to Alice.
It's Alice. Alice, I see,
Yeah.
I see how that could happen.
But yeah, no, he's...
Did he give it mouth to mouth? I mean, I don't know. What do you do with a fish? Lung to mouth? I
think it'd explode.
Gills.
He took a drawer out of his freezer and filled it up with water and threw it in that. Not in the freezer, obviously, but that's the biggest container he could find.
Hang on a minute. We're suddenly gone into cryogenics.
Yeah,
now.
that's it. So it's alive, and he's planning on getting another fish and a bigger tank and things to...
Right. I wonder what he's going to call it. If you've got
Wow.
one called Alice, what are you going to call the other one? It's going to be...
Alfred?
Oh, I was thinking of something from Alice in
Frederick?
Wonderland.
Yeah,
or
the
something like
Mad
that.
Hatter.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
The Cheshire Cat.
The Cheshire Cat.
That's-
Well, you would
that's-
call a fish Cheshire Cat.
Oh, yeah, that's a character name.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. White Rabbit. I don't know. It's a bit of an odd one, that one. But anyway, who
I'm not
knows?
that
But
familiar
that's-
with Alice in
I think
Wonderland.
that's a good, weird, and wonderful story.
Yeah, I
for
like
this week.
it. I like it.
A man saves a fish.
In mysterious circumstances.
And he was a doctor. So
And it
that
was a doctor. That might have helped. Who
Yeah.
knows? Anyway, so this week we are kicking around to bug in or to bug out as the big question that is on everybody's lips in the prepper world, and I suppose it's one of those subjects that, as we always tote ourselves as, we're practical preppers.
Yeah.
absolutely.
And
We don't talk about we don't want the world to end.
No.
We're talking about if something did happen, what would we do?
And are we prepared for it? So Yeah, and we've covered this before in other podcasts, but just to sum up, so if we were living in a region, I mean, obviously we're based in the UK, but if we were living in a region which is prone to flooding, then you might need to think about your plans. What if I suddenly wake up in the middle of the night and it's flooding and I've got to get out or I can't get out? What do I do? Do I have I prepared a bug out bag where I can stash all my important documentation and make sure that's safe from being destroyed in a flood, or it could be wildfire, or of course if you're listening to this program and you're listening to it in a different place in the world, you might live in a place which is subject to earthquakes or tornadoes,
volcanic eruptions, things like that.
So there are practical prepping circumstances that you might need to say, okay, so I live in Tornado Alley in America, and so you need to have a bunker to get into with supplies and things like that. And so that's practical prepping.
And the flooding, you probably need to have fresh water stored upstairs somewhere or something like that in case you have to go up to a thing.
Exactly.
Maybe a ladder, a way
Exactly.
to get to the roof.
You know, it could be that if something has happened quite bad, you might even be sporting an injury, and so you need to make sure that you've got some medical supplies. And of course, if it's flooding, the electrics are going to be out. You know, but you might have. We've all covered this. We have a box, don't we? Which Jack Harris, one of our other special guests, he came in and he designed his own blackout box.
Yeah.
You know, so things like that. So that's practical prepping. But what we thought in this episode, that we'd sort of twist it, take it up a notch.
Okay, fair enough.
Take it up a notch, and you know when people go down the pub and they're having a chat, and then somebody inevitably happens on occasions. They say, "What would you do in a zombie apocalypse?" You know, and they start, "Oh well, I'll do this." So what we want to do in this episode is talk about practically, what's practical about bugging in and bugging out, but in an extreme hypothetical situation, because this is one of the conversations that does get kicked around a lot. So if we say, okay, if there was any practical prepping kind of event, emergency, then life doesn't stop, life doesn't get turned on its head. Eventually you'll get yourself sorted and everything goes back to normal. So bugging out might be a necessity if you were caught in a wildfire and you've got to get out of that area and things like that. And that's all practical. But what we want to kind of take that step over the line and say, okay, what happens if law and order has broken down?
So we're talking about civil unrest.
Yeah, if you've got civil unrest, the world's gone to pot. What do I do? I mean, and not being funny, that can kind of and does happen in sort of like I don't know if you call it like micro environments where, you know, so take like in Haiti and places like that, where the gangs are running the cities these days.
Government coups and
things like this. So it doesn't have to be a world event. You can find yourself in a situation where law and order has gone out the window, and you need to make a decision.
Is this like one step below like a Mad Max Wasteland?
Mad Max Wasteland. Well, actually, I kind of think if you're going to say Mad Max Wasteland, you've got to. I think you've got to think the practical steps of getting you that far.
Because that's kind of slightly beyond. Yeah.
If you're going to get that far because you've had like a World War III event,
you've already survived that,
and you've survived that, then that's when it's going to happen. But that's going to be quite a long way down the line of all the events that are going to get you to suddenly be in the position where you're wearing your studded codpiece and driving around on your souped-up monster truck, you know, through the wasteland. You know, so, I am the Lord Humongous. You know, so I don't think I don't think that's going to kind of like go from everybody's in lockdown because of COVID, and then 2 months later it's the wasteland.
That's it.
But that said, let's you know, have a little bit of a chat about what we think we would do, and probably we have to put ourselves in a position of, we obviously live where we live, so we can look at this topic from where we actually do live, but then try and get into the mindset of people that might live in cities, might live in a high rise, might live by the coast, might live in a very rural position, things like that.
Throw the situation around,
So let's just say the scenario is that law and order has completely broken down.
Society's in disarray.
You know, there are potentially you know, if you're living in cities, if you're living in towns, there are marauding scavengers that nobody's going to stop if they want to break into your house.
Yeah.
Or
There is no authority.
There is no authority, because what authority does exist has bunkered itself down, or making sure it's safe, and just let everybody
Go
get
down
on
to the
with it.
Winchester.
Go down the Winchester
and wait for it all to blow over.
Exactly.
I think the initial thing probably because of because these flare up and kick off, so the initial thing would probably be to bug in to keep an eye on the situation, because everything's gone chaotic, mad, whatever. You want to protect yourselves rather than going out into that chaos where you've got no control over what's happening.
That's exactly the question we want to kick around.
And with it all more immediate, with lots of people, that you probably want to try and, if it dies down at all, let it die down a bit to give yourself a chance to escape. Plus, you can then have a better chance to plan and use the food you got in your house, and you're prepping your house at least initially.
But that's where a lot of people in society are going to fall down, because an awful lot of people, and we've said this before, live on that 24/7 kind of lifestyle where they don't necessarily really have much in their home to eat.
Yep.
Just take COVID, for example. Suddenly there was lockdown and people were just rushing out and buying everything they could. And
the toilet roll crisis. Petrol crisis.
I mean, literally, you saw on the news nurses that were doing a 12-hour shift, they were coming home and the shelves were cleared.
Yeah.
So in that situation, an awful lot of people are going to find themselves that they actually haven't got anything. And also, if you think the power, we'll put this in the scenario, the power has gone out.
Yep.
Water, therefore, the water pumps aren't working, so water is not going to come out your taps for very long. You know?
I imagine in that scenario, like, so many people are going to be screwed, essentially.
Panicking, definitely.
Yeah.
And of course, they always say the society is kind of like, 48 hours from anarchy? If you don't get a meal, if the people don't eat for 48 hours, then you can have anarchy on the streets, you know, because our whole infrastructure of supply and demand literally rests on a knife edge all the time. I mean, one ship gets stuck in the Suez Canal and suddenly it puts all the supplies back.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, and the shelves in the supermarkets don't get restocked.
Start to empty, yeah.
You know, so okay, so we're in that situation, Chaz, where the lights are out, the power's down. Perhaps we should start talking about, sort of, for example, you live in a town.
Yes.
Okay, so
let's talk about a city, and it's a town.
It's a town, so you would be bugging in.
I think initially yes, because people would be coming out. I mean, if it's that kind of lawless situation, whatever's kicked them off would probably be riots down the streets and things like that. All that initial stuff and the lawlessness. I don't think I'd want to get caught up in that straight away. I'd want it to try and pass to give me some space.
So
and hopefully I'll black out, make it look.
Yeah, I was going to say, in that scenario, you've got to make sure that if you have got some supplies and you have got the facility of some kind of independent power, you don't want people to see that.
No, absolutely
like a generator or something.
Well, I did read a scenario from one chap who he lived in a rural community. I think this was about 6 months ago, maybe longer, but he said where they were, the power had gone out. And he got a backup generator to basically run his freezers, his fridge and his freezers. So he got that out, got the power generator going. And he said it wasn't before long where people were knocking on his door and saying, "Oh, can I charge my phone? Can I do this and do that?" And he said, "Well, I've only got my little generator, and it's literally putting out, I think it was 1,000 watts, and there's enough to keep my fridge and freezer running."
Exactly.
For him and his needs.
And he said, I got a lot of aggression all of a sudden. They turned on me and saying, "Well, you're selfish and you're this." But then I think he ended up with like 10 people all wanting to use his electricity.
That'd be quite a scary situation.
And he said he felt really on edge that it could get violent, and he had to say that. And
like your neighbours, people living right next to you for potentially like years, suddenly turning on you.
Yeah, because you can't help everyone.
No, absolutely.
I think that's a decision.
Other than the detriment to yourself.
Yeah, well, and your family if you've got a family.
Exactly.
Because we got put into this scenario. obviously you've got a family, but
Yes.
most of the kids are grown up now, left home,
That's right.
and obviously I've got one son at home.
Hello, I'm the son.
But you've got lots of
Very
family. I mean,
bright.
take Jack Harris, one of our other prepper specialists. He's got a young family,
Yes.
so he's got I think 4 young children.
So
Those-
there's other
lots
things
of
to
different
look out for.
considerations as well. Yeah.
And again, for him, probably bugging him might be because taking young children out in the streets in that kind of situation would potentially even more dangerous. I think you need the gap.
Would you say that perhaps you would have to read the situation
Yeah.
and to say if there is a small window
To then maybe.
that maybe you should bug out, but if you miss that window, then that opportunity's gone, and your only opportunity is bug in.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But would you be looking to bug in permanently, or
No. I mean, if we're talking about the world, I mean, is this short term or long term? That's the thing. If it's long term,
we'll see how the conversation
Yeah.
goes on as well.
so if it's short term, you
If
might
it's
be able
long
to,
term and you get your studded codpiece out and start riding the
That's it.
wastelands or something.
if it's short term, you might be able to bug in and ride it out within the home and protect the home. There are ways of protecting the home. Try and make sure you're not spotted there if you can, and then there are other ways of spotting it.
I mean, I suppose with this scenario, we talk about lawlessness and the breakdown of society, but that's been shown. I mean, that's been shown in kind of movies and in TV series. And one from the 70s, which I absolutely adored, was called Survivors.
Yes, I remember
And-
that.
I was going to bring that
Yeah,
up. Yeah.
and that one,
But that was an illness, wasn't
yeah,
it?
that was an illness. So if we have had a pandemic.
Yes.
So let's just say that this could be a scenario which is not doomsday prepper kind of territory, but it is a real thing. But you get
a
a
potential.
virus which is far more deadly than we had with COVID. So you really are getting that indiscriminate. People are dying on the streets, and some people are getting over it.
Yeah.
Then you are going to be in the same scenario, aren't you?
Yeah,
Wasn't it
absolutely.
like in Survivors, it was like 10% of the population survived?
Yeah, only 10%. But in that one it showed you couldn't go and pump. You could only pump fuel out of cars if you found cars that you could get the fuel out of. The petrol pumps, no electricity, so you can't get it out of the thumbs. People were scavenging for food, things like that were happening.
In that sense, a lot of things
But of course
become
I think-
finite
I
resources.
think also you had that initial scenario where people were dying, and so you had that exodus to get out of the cities and things.
Yes.
So these kind of scenarios, you might find that if you've got that lawless society suddenly happens, and you've got marauding bands of scavengers that are going around,
And of course, with a plague, you've got bodies and disease and other things
Yeah.
that
Well-
build up in the city. Nobody's going to clear it up. So leaving the city for a more rural area.
but then again, if it isn't actually, if the prime cause of the scenario wasn't a virus, but it was literally a breakdown of society, you are still going to have situations, because you're going to have, dare I say it, this is the darker side of this scenario, you're going to have lots of dead bodies and things lying
People
around,
attacking,
and
yes.
it doesn't take long for diseases
No.
to start to spread when you've got
it's going to
festering
become rife.
cadavers around everywhere, you know.
Because nobody's going to clean that up.
Yeah, nobody's cleaning that up.
Everyone is out for themselves.
Even on the smallest things, because if you bug in, your toilets aren't going to flush anymore.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
And water is,
Common things that you just take for complete granted.
yeah. So
All gone.
water becomes a prime thing you need. So you're not going to just say, "Oh, I'll just chuck a bucket of water down the toilet to flush the toilet," because it becomes a really valuable commodity to have fresh water, especially if you're in your situation, Chaz. You're in a town.
Yes.
So if you haven't got an immediate water source near you that you can go safely to get water, you're gonna, unless you've prepared a certain amount of water storage, you are going to find that that's an issue. And I suppose the other thing we have to think about in this scenario is if this scenario struck at what time of the year, because if something like this happened in the winter time, then you've got to deal with sub-zero temperatures, etc.
Is it a particularly harsh winter?
Yeah,
in
but
this instance,
you could be dealing with having to keep yourself and your family warm,
Yeah.
but at the same time not wanting to light a fire to notify people that
Exactly, yeah.
You're in the property.
you're in the property.
Yeah.
But again, fire is
It's almost like painting a target on yourself.
yeah, and of course, talking about fire, in a lawless situation, if one building gets set on fire and
They
there's
can
nobody
spread.
to come and put it out, that fire is spread, and that kind of leads us to being, if you're living in a city or if you're living in a high-rise building, would
Then
it
what
be
do you do?
would
Yeah.
it be sensible to bug in to your apartment where you're on the 6th floor,
Yeah, so that. I
or
wouldn't
do you
like to
think
do it in a
I've
flat
got to get
situation.
out?
Yeah.
Because that is really the only realistic option I've got.
Well, in 28 Days Later, that is kind of what happens. You've got several characters that are stuck in this tower block. They're collecting water on the
yes.
roof,
And
and they're
I
having
did.
pretty much no luck collecting
because it's
water.
not it was summertime, wasn't it?
Yeah,
so
it was, everything
wasn't raining.
too warm, and essentially they hear this radio signal to go and get the cure. But I'm going off track.
Yeah,
But the fact is, from that bug-in situation, they then had to bug out.
yeah, they're forced to bug out.
Yeah.
But they got limited exit points in the high rise. I don't think
Mm.
I'd like to be trapped in the flat because you've got to go down to get out. And
Yeah.
So you're gonna
Because you're going to be in there with hundreds potentially of other people as well.
yeah, I mean, you only need a fire breaking out below you
that's it. Yeah,
or
that's
somewhere. And that's good.
problematic.
So I suppose the thing is, if you're a practical prepper and prepping for a situation like that, you already need to have an escape plan in place.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I mean, you get the rope ladder type things that you can buy so depending on how high you are, you might have 2 or 3 of them that you can use
well,
to get down.
I've got to say that Zach and I are quite used to abseiling.
Yeah.
So it'd be ropes out off the balcony.
And I'm not, so I mean, I'd be more of a difficult situation
Yeah.
with that. So
But again, you brought up a really good point.
Yeah.
You need to adapt your plans to your own circumstances. So, for example, if you were somebody who's disabled or
Yes.
somebody who is on a lot of different medication and things like that, that's all going to play a big part in it, isn't it?
Yeah,
You know, because you
absolutely.
can't just guarantee that the people we're talking about in a situation like that have got full health. You know, don't need any medication and all these things have got to play a part in it. I mean, I wear glasses, you wear glasses. I've got contact lenses in, but contact lenses are not going to be.
no, they're not.
You know, but do you have one pair of glasses, or do you make sure you've got several pairs of glasses in case you break glasses, lose glasses, things like that? Because if your glasses go and you actually can't see what you're doing,
I've got about 3 pairs. Well, I've got kept my old prescription, which isn't as good as the new one, but that's an emergency.
So
Exactly,
all these things you can't think about.
Yeah,
haven't
yeah,
you?
absolutely,
You know,
yeah.
it's really crucial. So again, to bug in or to bug out. So you'd bug in.
At
And
least initially.
I think I would agree in that. I mean, we live a little bit more rural than you,
Yeah.
but I would still say I'd.
I mean, if
bug in
it's that lawless, if I decided to bug out straight away with a lot of people still around and I get to a wooded area or a field or a country and I set up the camp, you said about cold. I mean, if it is winter, then I am more exposed to the environment, even though I've got the tent and other equipment in my bug out bag to do it. So I'm probably more likely to need a fire, but then in an open area, that's very visible.
It can be
Exactly. You almost like your defensive walls are kind of taken away from you if you're
if
just
you
straight camping outside.
There are ways of shielding the fires
Yeah.
a bit, but it can, and smoke is, people can smell smoke if there are any. You
Yeah.
can't always tell where it's coming from.
Yeah, I mean, if you can do it in kind of like a wooded area and stuff like that, the trees themselves can break up the smoke
Yeah.
before it gets out of the canopy height and things like that. You know, so
So in this sense, if you were bugging out and you're just going out, would it be like a nomadic lifestyle where you would just constantly be moving around, or would you bug out to a place?
right, okay. Oh, I think we need to come
Like
back.
point A and B.
I think we need to come back to that initially. Maybe we should finish off with or discuss more of the bugging in,
Okay.
and then that's the natural progression, isn't it? Because you've got your initial plan A. I mean, you know, you always have your kind of your primary plan, and then your emergency plan, and then your contingency plan, and then your, you know, if
Plan Z.
I haven't got anything else I can do in this situation, because for example, if you are bugging in and you get to a point where you're forced to bug out,
Exactly.
you should have a bug out plan in place. But if your exit strategy, that plan has been blocked for some reason, there's something that's stopping you following
An
that
unforeseen factor.
initially going that way. Maybe it's too dangerous, or whatever's happened, or maybe that where you are, it's all on fire, and you just well, can't go that way, or whatever. Then you have to have contingency plans on top of that, you know. But bugging in, is an interesting thing in itself, because it depends surely on where you live in the world. Because if you lived in the United States, for example,
Yeah.
you can be bugging in, locked and loaded,
Oh yeah,
with as
absolutely,
much, with armaments,
But
so much you can have. Anybody comes near my place,
Well, in America,
Okay.
you've got entire businesses like around this prepping scenario to install bunkers.
Oh, you can have a bunker easily in America. But the thing is, one thing that is prevalent in America, and probably in lots of different countries around the world, is the access to armaments
yes,
as for home defence. I suppose that's the thing we need to talk about in this before we go on to the bugging out. Bugging in is the home defence, isn't it? And people, you talk about home defence, and of course, if you live in a country where you've got legal access to firearms, that's going to give you, to a degree, I would imagine, a certain feeling of security, because you think, right, okay, I'm in my home, anybody comes, I can. We are now in a lawless situation. Nobody's going to come up and send the police cars round to cart you off to prison.
Exactly.
So I can defend my home with these armaments. But obviously, the people that are coming to your home are also packing armaments.
yeah, yeah.
So you are in this battle situation, and I've thought about that scenario. That the fact is, you can have military compounds that are really built to be secure, and they still get overrun at times.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So what you're talking about is just an everyday house.
If you've got glass, they've got an entry point because glass is not strong.
Yeah.
And we've got
So we
windows,
are talking about bugging into and defending a home, which is not a purpose-built castle or bunker, So that does bring a lot of questions into it. And of course, home defence in the UK is completely different to the scenario I just said if you're in America, because we do not have guns.
No.
The minimum kind of legal thing you might have would be a shotgun if you have a shotgun license.
Yeah.
And you might have an air rifle, air pistol, that
A
kind of.
slingshot.
There are some non-lethal home defence air weapons that run off CO2 cartridges, which only engage when you've got them, and they fire quite large balls, and there are various ammunition for them. They're a bit smaller than the squash ball, but the ordinary black ones are quite solid and hit and hurt and may possibly knock you out. But they do other ones that are breakable, like tear gas or pepper spray, that when you shoot that they hit, and they do that. So it's a non-lethal home defence weapon.
Are these legal in the UK?
Yes.
They are.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything like that advertised.
But again,
Well, they don't advertise a lot of stuff here, and it's because I do target shooting and air weapons and do all the podcast and things. I see some of this stuff come up, so they are legal for a home defence weapon.
So people could. And of course you have projectile weapons. You mentioned catapults.
What I'm going to say on this point is the fact that these things, they also rely on a access to ammunition.
Yeah. So if you did archery and you've got bows, for example, whether they're recurve bows, long bows, compound bows, crossbows, even, you've got, unless you've got an absolute ton of ammunition, that's all you've got. Once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
But that's going to be the same with firearms. And in the UK, you can't dismiss the fact that there is going to be a certain quantity of illegal firearms.
Yes.
That may well be in the hands of the.
Well, they're going to be in the hands of the unlawful.
The unlawful people. So the scavenger people are probably going to be more likely to have
dominion.
Actual arms.
Yeah.
Well, they always say in this kind of situation, it's the biggest and the meanest dogs that are going to rule the day.
Yeah.
As daft as it may sound, I've got a curtain rail, which is a reasonably effective weapon. Not quite a quarter staff, but on that sort of length. And if I really want to be brutal, then a kitchen knife strapped to the end of that.
We're not condoning that, anybody. This
No,
is a totally hypothetical situation.
So if it came down to that point, that is primitive type spear type
Yeah,
weapon.
yeah. Well, again, it's one of those bizarre things in the UK. Of course, we do have knife crime in the UK. Our legal carry in the UK is a blade no longer than 3 inches, which is a foldable pen knife. They actually don't call it in law a knife; it's called an article. So if it's a bladed article
Yes.
with a blade length no more than 3 inches and it's non-locking and foldable, that's a legal carry. Although you cannot carry it in places such as a hospital, a courthouse, a police station, or a airport, things like that. But if you do carry it and you've got a reasonable excuse if you were stopped for why you're carrying it, that is about as legal as it gets for us. But yet again, we have things like kitchen knives and everything which are readily accessible to anybody.
Exactly.
And are generally the things. I mean, I know they go in the news in the UK recently, and somebody very sadly got killed recently, I
With a
believe,
machete, wasn't
with a
it?
machete.
Well,
Yeah, that was-
not a couple of months ago, it was a person with
But, it was that guy
a
with
really
the
bad
wall-
flimsy katana.
because you could see it was bent.
Yeah.
So it was a wall hanger one.
But these were 12-year-old kids that attacked
Yeah.
somebody recently.
Yeah, with a
And
machete.
there's something wrong with the men.
It's
The mentality there.
It's the mentality, and that's the thing I want to say about the knife laws in the UK, because it's always quickly jumped to ban.
It's the knife, yeah.
But I am somebody who I'm a woodsman. I work in the woods. I do a lot of stuff in the countryside, and I have tools and I have machetes because there are certain times of the year when you've got nesting birds, and if I'm having to clear areas. And I've got certain wildlife in the area, I can't spark up my petrol-driven.
No, you might need a
equipment.
scythe or
Exactly.
a machete, or
And it makes
a weapon,
more
and it's a
sense to be able to
tool.
use, and it's a tool.
Exactly.
So if you turn around and you say, "Oh, I want to ban all these things," then you are banning them from people that actually need them on an everyday thing. There are lots of people that do hedge laying and things using bill hooks and things.
Oh, yeah, there's
all
some-
these things.
And it's a complete fallacy
Yeah.
to say that you're going to be able to ban kitchen
Yeah,
knives.
you can't.
That's
That's
ridiculous.
where I was going with it. You can't ban kitchen knives. You can't ban people from sharpening screwdrivers and doing
And
all
cars
sorts.
actually probably kill more
But
people. So you
and so I don't really want to
No,
go off
anyway,
onto the knife crime bit. But the point is, I could put a knife on a table, and that knife is never going to kill anybody.
no,
Because it's the person
that grabs it.
and does
Makes that choice.
Makes the choice. So knives don't in themselves kill.
No.
People
you,
kill people.
you can probably also equate that to guns. That guns don't kill; it's the people that pull the triggers. But with a gun, it's too easy. Yeah, it's easier to.
Yeah, and it can accidentally go. I mean,
Be
a lot of
trigger
the guns
happy
are
and
trigger.
things.
Yeah,
So in our scenario, you could have the potential of having to defend your home from bands of people which are armed and dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, in that sense, would you have visual deterrence like outside your property, or would you just try and blend into the background, like make it completely inconspicuous?
that's always been a double thought, because I mean it's the old burglar alarm syndrome. If you see somebody's got a burglar alarm, that kind of says, "Oh, that place has got something worth nicking because they put a burglar."
It's true, but also you have the situation where you have a house that's got burglar alarms, CCTV cameras, do not enter, facial recognition these days, all these things. Go rob next door because they haven't got any of this.
Yeah.
But
Because then if it's lawless,
Yeah, no,
in
I know,
this
yeah.
in this
So,
scenario, we wouldn't have the technology there.
no, you wouldn't have nothing
Would
that's
you
gonna
get like a spray can and put infected on
see,
the door?
I think,
Or-
although silly that it sounds,
Yeah.
I think you're actually onto something there.
that might, yeah, that
Because
could
if you
Virus here.
if you
Do not enter.
if you do put a red cross and say, do not enter infected,
Yeah.
are you going to go in there?
I wouldn't, no.
No.
So-
And even an idiot, I would like to think that somebody who is lawless, and unless they're incredibly desperate,
yeah.
would they want to crack open a door and find loads of bodies with flies buzzing all over?
Exactly.
So that might actually be quite a sensible thing to do.
So that's what the deterrent might.
And in terrible situations that have obviously happened in recent times, like in Israel and Palestine, and when
Shocking.
when Hamas obviously did the initial strike at that music concert, and they invaded a kibbutz there, people survived because they did hide under rubbish piles
Yeah.
and things. Others went into their what do they call them? They're panic rooms. And then they set fire to the houses and were trying to literally smoke them out of the panic rooms, and they managed to survive. Some of them did. Yep. But that's the thing. So you can either have that very visible defence that you hope's going to protect you, or you do what you say and sort of try and blend in and disappear. So it's an interesting thing to think about, to give it some consideration. So,
but again, that would obviously depend on the situation. From what I said, that would kind of depend on whether or not there's like a massive outbreak of some kind of virus or epidemic of some kind.
Yeah, I mean, I would say...
What would you do in that lawless society where it's just anarchy?
I think if there's a pandemic or epidemic, you are going to get that exodus, as I say, of people. But at the same time, you might feel that by isolating yourself and keeping yourself inside your home and away from becoming in contact with anybody, that in itself might be the more sensible route, because you're not.
Again, a lot of this is an initial. If it goes for any length of time and things become worse, you may be forced into a situation to bug out. But at least while you're in, you can be making that assessment.
Okay. So let's see if we can sort of sum up the bugging in. In what scenario or in what state would you think people are best to bug in, and what they really shouldn't choose that as an option? So, for example, if we mention the tower block, it's probably what you say low priority to bug in. You might think in a situation like we've described, you've got to have an escape plan
somewhere
quite quickly. Because
unless it's a flood, and then the tower block's pretty good.
In case it's a kaiju or something like that, and the old city has become flooded, the Thames barrier has been overrun.
Where I live, England's in trouble.
Gorgo's running around.
Hey.
So your tower block, you're up there. But so there are going to be situations where bugging in probably isn't the best idea.
No, you mentioned earthquakes and things like that, and if it's that kind of emergency or disaster area, and it's not lawless, there are maybe rescue services, there's normally a place where people would gather, and it's probably best to bug out to one of those, because you've got people around that you can help and that can help you, and definitely. That's a community type of thing.
So again, that's a practical prepping situation, isn't it? But again, so in a lawless society, perhaps if you live by the coast, you might already be thinking, at the earliest opportunity, I'm going to get to a boat.
Well, I have a destination for prepping out. Well, at least one. You have backup plans.
You don't have to divulge anything, by the way.
But
if you've got, for all we know,
information.
he's got his own bunker somewhere.
But it's do you go south from here? We're kind of mid-England.
We are technically in Middle England. Yeah. You can't get further from the coast.
So do you head north to the Highlands type thing and try and remote out there? I don't know Scotland that well. There's a couple of destinations I can think of if I wanted to go that route that I would possibly go.
Again, getting there, I would think roads would become snarled up.
It would be the travel and things like that. And
that'd be quite some hike.
I would think that in a lawless situation, before it becomes society total breakdown, that military and emergency services would probably try and stop people from moving around.
Yeah. And
so you're going to get roadblocks and things, and then you're going to get abandoned cars, and before you know it, you're just not going to be able to move on the roads.
But if you know your books, my other destination is the one they used in Day of the Triffids, so it's like...
You're going to go to Covent Garden? Not Covent Garden. I was just thinking, what's the big greenhouse?
Kew
Gardens, that's it.
Yeah.
Head for Kew Gardens.
That's it. See if we can find a natural enemy of the Triffids.
So again, it really is down to where you are. But you're going to have to plan for that evacuation scenario. So if we move on to the bugging out, so whether you are using a bugging out plan as your initial, I've got to get out of here, or if you're using that as your backup plan if it becomes untenable to stay in your bug in situation, that in itself surely throws up a lot of logistical problems. It's like how you bug out, what transportation or no transportation, what you can carry, what you can't carry.
You're obviously limited by that.
Yeah, I mean, if you say, So you've decided I'm going to bug out because I've got a dirty great big 4x4 truck and I can chuck loads of gear in there. I do all this, and then you drive quarter of a mile down the road and everything is completely blocked and you can't get off road.
Yeah.
It's like putting out a shopping trolley in the middle of a street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
look,
don't say
go
that.
get that.
No, don't say that. It's like that film, The Road.
Oh, that was not
Yes, I mean, just briefly talking about apocalyptic movies. Yes, that was
Viggo Mortensen.
Viggo
wasn't
Mortensen. Yeah, if you ever see it, they do everything wrong.
Okay.
It drove me mad that. He actually even ended up in a fully stocked bunker at one time, and because he heard noises outside the bunker through the air vent, he felt it was unsafe to be there, and they left everything.
Oh.
And it's like, what are you doing? But anyway, totally different. Going off track a little bit.
We don't recommend The Road.
The Road. Some people loved it. I didn't get it. But the point was, at one point, he's chosen for his mode of transporting all of his
Worldly
scavenged
possessions,
food
yeah.
and worldly possessions, a Tesco's shopping trolley.
Okay. They're not
And you
controllable at the best of
You
times.
I cannot imagine anything that's worse
Yes.
than a bleeding shopping trolley. You know, they're awful. Just as you say, go around the shop.
Yeah.
So he's literally trying to push the shopping trolley on their journey on the road.
Yeah.
And of course, any time any marauding scavengers come along,
imagine how
they have-
noisy that's going to be.
exactly.
Yeah.
They dive off the road and leave the shopping trolleys.
And they lose all their stuff.
And you're thinking, you're in a post-apocalyptic world. Surely you could have found a car or something with better wheels.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, don't go for a shopping trolley, guys. If you listen to this, that's a no-no when it comes to bugging out. So you've got that scenario of bugging out, and again, it comes down to the family unit as well, doesn't it?
Exactly. The more hands you've got, the more you can potentially carry.
Yeah, but you could also be in the scenario where you've got to deal with young children, and that they may not want to carry much. They might want to take their toys because they've got beloved toys, and they're things that are really
Important to them. Yeah,
important to them, but not essential. And you might want to try and be stealthy at times, and you've got young children that don't understand that and want to be noisy.
A quiet place, you've got the rocket.
Oh, that's You've seen The Quiet Place, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, you're going to get that electronic rocket.
Here, have some batteries.
Have some batteries. No! Stealth goes out the window. In fact, they've got a new movie coming out, haven't they?
Yeah,
it's
Day
the
One.
prequel, Day One. We're going to be
It's fun.
discussing it. But we do like a good apocalyptic movie, especially if you've seen our our review of Furiosa.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go watch that.
go
if you
watch
haven't.
I
Anyway.
haven't watched that one yet, but I've just finished the 4 Mad Max films before that because I had the box set with,
Right.
with the mother. So
Nice. Furiosa, really good movie. Anyhow, so bugging out. What would you do, Chaz? Your advice to people if they want to bug out, if they feel that that's there now, it's either their primary choice or it's the time has come where we've got to bug out.
Again, it's assessing the state of the road. I mean, I've got a car. I mean, I might try that first. See if I can get out of the area in a car. If it's not controlled, it gets me a bit further. I've got my backpack with all my stuff in it and things like that I can walk. I'd use my vehicle as far as I could. Like I say, I've got a couple of destinations in mind. I would have to make a choice of where I was heading. At the point, the time that situation became necessary, and then I would try and get as far as I could in the car, and if not, then probably end up on foot
Well, this is interesting.
or James Coburn on a push bike.
That's interesting. You say as far as you could get, but that's the thing. As far to where?
Well, that's the destination. That
You've got to, as an individual, I suppose, or a unit, decide where you're going to go.
Exactly, yeah.
Where you're going to.
Where
One thing we didn't really cover is actually.
We've always got the secret bunker just down to us.
Oh yeah,
The not so secret bunker.
The one in Essex.
Yeah, that one.
That's got big signs saying this is
Secret
the way
bunker.
to the secret bunker.
That's the one, yeah.
I wonder how many people will go to that. But one thing we didn't actually talk about was in the bugging in it is actually having not just individual people or families, but you might have a network that you could come together. Yeah, in that situation where you could actually already have built a network and say, in this situation, we need to come together.
Well, don't they do that in America on a lot of these like doomsday prepper shows and things?
Yeah,
They have like
a
get-togethers.
trusted community,
like a group of people
Yeah.
that have kind of banded together.
I suppose in that situation you really have got to trust the rest of the members of the group.
Yeah, I saw some wacky things whilst watching that program.
Yeah, well, actually, there was one who wasn't it? They were doing an exercise, a nighttime exercise or something, and he nearly shot his ear off with a shotgun.
They were doing some kind of test shooting range thing.
Yeah, as if they were under
attack from
attack, and
a
they ended
perimeter
up.
fence. Yeah,
He ended up.
he fired in the confined space.
Oh, that's it. He fired in the confined space with rather a large caliber gun, wasn't
Yes.
it? But he fired with the guy standing next to him without any headphones on.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
And literally almost deafened him.
And literally the effect of that was, I don't know whether I can trust this person.
You're out.
Yeah.
That's it. You forfeited your place in this group.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But as you said, they got bunkers in there. There was a guy that bought the rocket silos and bunkers, and he was selling.
He still is.
Yeah, he's selling spaces in it
Yeah.
to build up a community.
Yeah, they have that. There's quite a big luxury community, and
Yeah.
that sort of end up going down the lines of
Fallout.
Fallout, yeah.
But
The vaults.
Heaven knows what's going to happen down that vault.
every dystopian film I've ever seen, it just proves that people are quite nasty
Boy
to
and
each
his
other.
dog.
Yeah,
Yeah,
classic.
Boy and his dog, absolute classic, because you have the society that live in the bunker that have gone sterile and are really wacky, and then you've got the scavengers on the surface.
Yeah,
You know,
and that's even more played out in the Time Machine with the Eloy and the
yeah, and
Morlocks.
the Morlocks, another favourite one of ours.
We love our movies, by the way.
Yeah, I'm
I'm
sure
watching The Walking
regular
Dead.
listeners would know that.
Yeah.
I'm watching Walking Dead from the beginning again, just at the minute, and
Yes,
the
see,
missus, because she hasn't seen it, so we decided.
Yeah, it's one of those programs which I kind of find is very Marmitey. Now, I like Marmite,
Okay.
Yeah.
but there are certain areas of it
Oh,
that I just scream at the screen going, why
why?
are you
Yeah,
doing this?
exactly. Yeah.
I think the deepest we've got into that series is like
It was
season 4 or 5.
it was after the prison.
And there's like 10 seasons and numerous spin-offs now.
I go up to a point where I think most people, I don't care if it's spoilers, but Rick disappears.
Okay.
Rick's
the sheriff, isn't he?
Yeah. And then I kind of drifted away from it. I think a lot of people did at that point, but I've been told by my daughter and a few other people that now you can kind of binge watch it again. And I know at least my wife hadn't seen it, so we decided to get it again. She said you can go through that bit and then it gets better again. So
Right,
and they've just brought out a new series. I've noticed that Those Who Live or something.
Yeah,
So,
I've heard
The ones that live. Yeah.
I've heard of people that are giving that a really big thumbs up on that one.
yeah, so I don't know. I haven't seen that, but yeah.
So
Spoilers for those middle seasons.
spoilers, slightly off, but I think that we drifted off about that, but I think it's watching TV series like that and movies like that do get a certain amount of people thinking, do you know, I am so fed up with the rat race as it is that maybe it's not such a bad thing if the world went to pot, so that I could just. At least, even if I didn't last that long, I can live free to a certain extent. You know,
The Great Reset.
Oh, don't start. We actually did the podcast
That was
last
last
week.
Yeah,
Wow.
Did you listen to it?
I did listen to that.
Way, the Great Reset.
Excellent.
Yes, you will own nothing and be happy.
Yes.
You don't have a choice in that matter.
You don't have a choice. But that's the thing with that one. It actually, it's kind of an odd one because it is conspiracy theory, as it's touted as, but it actually is a thing.
But they seem to be pushing cars that way gradually.
What the?
Well, with electric cars.
Well, electric
and
cars,
they're pushing the sale of those, and it's
Or-
fleet, and you
Yeah,
have to.
you basically
keep
lease
it-
it.
yeah.
Lease it. Don't buy it.
No.
You know, but that again, it's kind of what we said in that podcast is disaster capitalism,
Yeah.
because if you look at the fossil fuels adding to global warming, and so we've got to cut back on the fossil fuels, and the fact that fossil fuels are not inexhaustible, they're going to run out at some point if we keep
Oh yeah,
just using them.
absolutely. Of course they will.
That how are we going to make money out of this? I know we'll sell everybody electric cars now because they kind of sprung up overnight. I mean, before we suddenly woke up one morning with the electric cars, you had milk floats and a Sinclair C5,
Yeah, of course we
and
did.
they all wrote off.
Yeah.
Electric cars just aren't going to be a
I
thing.
think the earliest electric car was around the petrol tower. It was about 1930 or something like that. The first electric car, even earlier. But
So if you're going to bug out with your electric car, you're not going to get too far.
no.
Damn it! I knew I should have charged it up before the apocalypse happened. But that's what the electric cars. I know we're being jokey, but the electric cars have kind of ruined my Mad Max dystopian future, because you watch films like Mad Max and they're all in the muscle cars and all this, and you think if all those have been scrapped.
That's it, yeah.
And everybody's society before it breaks down, I'm all meant to have electric cars. You just like have these road warriors, going, hang on, I've got to charge up my electric scooter,
e-scooter,
my e-scooter, or you're in your electric Skoda going, I am the road warrior.
They try and sell it to you as a green issue, but it's not. It's about, if it was green, they'd all have the same battery that you could swap. But they're going to be different batteries that you're not going to be able to get in 8-9 years time, because they would have gone on something else.
Yeah.
So that car will be scrapped for the sake.
And there is another part of it with the electric cars, because they are computer driven, which means all the software becomes out.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You can't update it anymore.
It's like
you
see it with phones
to repair it.
It's the same as having a computer. You have the latest computer, but it's only the latest computer for so long. Before then, it's for sale in a shop window, or a second-hand shop, and people say, "Well, I don't want to buy that because it's out."
With technology, they've made the next technology, the wave of technology for the next 5 years.
I think actually it was you, Chaz, that said that, because obviously you worked with electronics, that you said that the technology was already probably there 5 years ahead of what they're selling.
Yeah.
And I always found that quite profound, the fact that what we're buying now
it's 5 years
is
old
5 year old technology, because they're saving the stuff to give to you later on.
Well, it's always the research phase of it. So as they produce it, I mean, it's out there and it's in a small thing, and they have to test it and things like that. And it takes a while to drift
Through and get through, and I suppose get to a commercial price that people can afford.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we're bugging out. We've got the destination, but we've got to obviously carry certain supplies. So if you're going to bug out, would you? I've always felt as part of a good bug out plan is to have caches that you know that you've got there, because if you're bugging in, and you could have the best supplied bugging
it's going to run out eventually.
Place. Well, it's either going to run out, or you're going to get forced out of that, or you could be at work when a scenario like this happens, and by the time you get home, it's gone.
Yeah.
So you've got to say, okay, if I'm bugging out, I'm either going to have something that I can carry, which is going to be minimal.
Yeah.
If I'm going to rely on what I can carry in a vehicle, that's going to be more. But if then that vehicle dies, you still can't.
You kind
carry
of got that
it all.
fallback. Yeah.
You can have caches which are hidden en route, or you give that kind of where you're bugging out to. You've got.
I think the cache is. I mean, it's a good idea, but I think it's one step too far for me. I can't see myself going round the country digging holes somewhere and hiding.
There are people that do that,
and absolutely that's fine. But I think that's one step too far. What I need to do is find myself a farmer and a farm, because the people that you're going to need after.
As long as they haven't got a barn full of zombies.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But they're going to know about keeping machinery going and how to farm and things like that. So.
But then that's when you're going to hit resistance, because if you kind of like, okay, we're heading towards this farmhouse.
Yeah.
Don't you think you're going to get somebody who's going to get a shotgun out and say, "Don't you get any?"
Very probably, but I'll have to try and convince them that I'm worth having around. So.
I'm an engineer. Trust me, I'm an engineer.
Yeah.
Give me something to fix, I'll prove myself. Because that's another big thing that's within this scenario is that trust
and
morality, really.
Morality and trust.
Morality and bartering. You need to bring something to the table, some skills.
Yeah, that's one of the things as a prepper myself. I never really understood this fixation that some preppers have on stockpiling gold and silver.
No.
I can see that if you were talking about a situation like a financial collapse, like they had the Great Depression, something like that you can get through and then the economies build up again, that if you've got money in the bank and things, that could just disappear these days because it's all electronic. You could be wiped and he's gone. Yeah. So you could kind of see if you've got something physical which is of value, then it's in the hope that when things go back to normal, you've got some funds.
some asset, yeah.
But in the scenario that we're talking about, as far as I'm concerned, I can only see it as being less than useless.
Yeah, yeah.
Unless you're going to throw it at somebody, or
No.
something, because if somebody came up to me and I've got food
Yeah.
or I've got medical supplies, and they say I've got some gold, I kind of like,
Yeah,
well,
I'll keep
it's
one.
worthless
Yeah,
to
that's
me.
right, yeah.
So that's no good for bartering.
What can you use it for?
Yeah,
Well,
so-
that's the start of a society thing again. I mean, isn't it? I mean, you take gold back to the cavemen, they look at you like you're weird, but when you come to civilizations like Egyptians and Vikings, then the
the
bands
bling,
have got
the bling, yeah, having their bands,
and something to change, to exchange. So
I understand, and of course before gold and silver, people used to barter using seashells.
Yeah,
and things.
yeah.
But
or spices, they were worth loads.
tea and things. So I don't know if in a lawless situation whether that kind of thing is really you're gonna be more after if you want.
I wouldn't want to carry gold and silver; it's too heavy, and if I'm bugging out,
Yeah.
I'm not going to carry it. It's going to be useless,
yeah.
mate.
Okay.
That I'd find somewhere to bury in a hole if I had some.
Okay. So basically you.
Ori,
the
get a
sport.
shovel.
I was going to say, you've become an Irish leprechaun, and you're going, hey, where's my gold?
Yeah.
I've buried it somewhere.
I can't remember. It was so long ago.
It's at the end of the rainbow.
Come back and find it's in the yard of a police.
Oh yeah, it's in a police station, and the mice have eaten it.
Yeah.
that was a good film. That was. Name the film? Can't remember it off the top of my head.
Studios.
Yeah, it's a good one. But anyway, so bugging out is fine, but you really have to have a good plan. I think a good plan that's fitted. I think after to kind of round off this discussion, and I hope we've given some pointers at least for people to think about, that it really does come down to where you live.
Yep.
And what your individual circumstances are, your what abilities you may have, but that it's still going to be a very unnerving choice you've got to make.
And is it not good to have both covered?
I think if I was going to chip in with myself to round this off, and then you can feed back to me. I think when that question throws itself up, do I bug in or do I bug out? I think the answer, after discussing with you guys, is both.
Yes.
You've got to be ready to do both.
Yeah.
You might not want to, but you've got to be prepared for that eventuality.
I think if you've got a mind to bug in, you've also got to make sure that even though you are very reluctant, perhaps, you've got to say, well, okay, I need to plan to bug out, and I've got to put these plans into. I've got to have them in place.
Yeah.
Equally, if you're going to bug out, you have your plans already. Well, I know what I'm going to do. I know where I'm going to go. But if you can't, then you've got to kind of be, well, what if I can't? I need to bug in. So I think the actual answer seems to be, from our discussion, that it is one and the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not it's not either or.
To use an example from Tremors 3,
We love that.
Burt Gummer, he's a survivalist,
Yes.
practical prepper. He throws probably thousands of pounds into this impenetrable fortress.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
Stocked
with
with
all
food,
his MREs,
MREs for years to come.
guns, ammo.
What's the one thing he hasn't prepared for? Ass blasters.
Ass blasters.
They come in through the roof, blow up the entire place, and
He's lost everything. So there you go. You've got to have a plan B.
And watch Tremors if you have.
Watch Tremors.
Well,
Okay.
I think going somewhere coastal and rural is probably a good thing, because you're going to need food, and the shops, if it's gone that, so to fish in the sea, and I'm not a lover of fish, but to fish in the sea.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. You're going to be buggered then.
Damn it!
Damn it!
Why did only the fish
We'll
survive?
find Chaz living off seaweed in Wales.
If it comes crispy fried seaweed, that'll be fine.
Yeah, that's not bad.
So no, you're going to need to consider that, and I'll eat fish if I don't hunt. I can't. I've got air rifles. I couldn't bring myself to point my weapon at an animal and pull the trigger because I have no need to.
Oh well.
But if I had a need to,
Yes.
a rabbit or something, then I think that would change. So it's to do with need, really.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, if you are able to get to the coast, you're able to get out into the water, and you're able to maybe get to a secluded island or something, whether it be a viral infection that you're escaping from, whether it be just disorder on the streets you're trying to get through, that's probably the safest option.
Yeah.
Whereas if you live in a country where, as you're like North America,
That's huge. Yeah.
where I've been, so I've been there, I've seen for myself that just vast forests and things. Then again, I think you're quite capable of disappearing. There's enough space. But we live in England with knocking on, was it 65 million people now, 70 million people?
It's a lot.
I think I worked it out. If you took the square mileage of the UK, divided it by the population. I might have done this a few years ago, so it might be worth. I think if you took it might be slightly outdated. If you did the square mileage by the population, I think in every square mile you would have about 75 people per square mile. So,
that's quite a few, really.
So, and a lot of people that live in the countryside, if they suddenly found that people were making a big exodus from all the major towns and cities into the countryside, the countryside would be flooded with people very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it really would be. I know you talk about the Highlands, but the Highlands of Scotland, if you could get there, even that I don't think is going to end up being that remote.
No. It's not my first choice, but
and you also got to think about sustainability. At least what you just said about going to the coast. Practically, at least you have got food, because you've got food in the sea, you've got food on the coastline itself.
Exactly.
Unless you don't like fish and seafood. Poor old Chaz. He's living out his days in the wasteland, and I hate this. Damn, I could kill a double quarter pounder right now.
I think it might be an acquired taste. I'd get there.
Maybe with the radiation, you have like quarter pounders that have grown legs.
When we went up Ben Nevis,
yeah,
we'd run out of water, and I was really thirsty, and we filled it up from that stream. And although we hadn't not drunk for a long time, that water was one of the best I've ever had, because I was really thirsty at that time. So
yeah, and you knew it was damn safe to drink, because the thing is, when you're up at that kind of altitude, the water is coming out from the snow and the ice that's built up on the mountain anyway. It's shedding off the mountain, and you are above where any sheep have been peeing or crapping in or dying in it and stuff like that. So unless you've got a water filter. So again, if you're bugging out or bugging in, make sure you've got your water filtration system sorted. But I think we covered that in another Preppers podcast. I don't know if
possibly.
I don't know if we've really focused on actually
survival
water prep, and
I've got a live straw, but there's also, you need to know how to make a filter system if possible, so the bottle and sand and stones, the
good old fashioned gypsy well.
And then
That's it. Yes, but again, then people will. I'll tell you, as soon as you start saying you do this and do that, then they start saying, "Oh, you've got all the heavy metals and you've got all the phosphorus and all the rest of it in the water like this." We said, "Well, actually, if I'm actually that desperate, I'll drink it, but I will take the opportunity to make it as safe as possible. Filter it as making a rudimentary filter. If I haven't got a proper filter, I'll make and then boil it. But that's the problem a lot of people are going to find, because they don't know how to make fire. They're not going to be able to boil it. And there we go. Humanity, we've dragged ourselves out of the Stone Age through finding out how to control fire, and now the majority of people don't know how to even light a fire. So.
Lost skills.
That's a worrying thought.
Everybody needs electricity.
Which is why we need the farmers. If it all really does kick off and the towns and things, they'll go mad. We don't need politicians.
That's interesting you should say that, because we were up in...
We need the rural people that know how to farm and fix things.
We were up in Norfolk yesterday, and we went under a bridge, and it had something written on the bridge, and it said, "No farmers, no food."
Yeah.
There you go.
Exactly.
I think that's a poignant thing to kind of finish off this conversation.
Yeah.
What to bug in or to bug out? What do you think your answer is to that?
It's got to be both. Prepared for both.
I think we're all in agreement on that. So there you go, listeners. It's a case of neither one nor the other.
Subject.
It is.
Exactly.
And
we could talk for hours.
Hours about this and all the little things.
I mean, I dare say we're going to address this in further podcasts.
Well, you've got all the planning and everything you've got to do, and all that, and there's so much.
Exactly.
Anyway, so that leaves us at this end of the podcast with our little tail end feature,
Mhm.
which we call
Wisdom of the Week.
And Wisdom of the Week this week is. Are you ready for it?
Okay, I'm ready.
You ready? You ready, Chaz?
Absolutely,
Bestow
mate,
your
John.
wisdom.
I shall bestow
need
my
the
wisdom.
wisdom.
I shall bestow my wisdom. Wisdom of the week is always do your best. For what you plant now, you will harvest in the future.
Very good with the farmers.
Farmers, yeah, and planning.
And planning.
And
yes.
I was trying to get something to thinking about. If you plan, and you need to, you can harvest later on. So I don't know. Try and get something that is kind of wisdom of the week associated with our subject.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yep,
So
sure.
it's been brilliant. Well, thank you for coming in. It's been
It's
a real
been fun.
pleasure to have you here. And I always love thrashing out these things about prepping because a lot of people think that preppers are nutters. And
Maybe we are.
We probably are.
Please
yeah,
let us
absolutely.
know.
I don't know. I mean, it's fair to say that earlier on today we were eating some MRE food from 1988, I think it was. You know, and it tasted very nice.
It did.
Spicy sausage and potato wedges.
I must say it wasn't
Yeah.
that spicy.
No, well, not for us. We like a bit of spice. We still we have our spice agent here.
Oh yeah, the winner of the best
Yeah, that was good.
The
spiciness.
spice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll have to make some more.
That's
I've run
it.
out.
If
The spice melange.
the spice, if ever that apocalyptic future becomes like Dune, you will be the emperor.
He
I
is
added-
the Kawasat
All
Haderach.
right, he is in control of the spice.
I had added that to my bug out kit. I've got
Yeah.
a little spice pack. It's not going to last forever, but at least at some point, if I find something, I can spice up my food a little.
Oh, I thought he was going to use his chili sauce for like home defence.
The weapon.
Have some of that.
And that would probably work.
It probably would.
Yeah.
Ah, my eyes! Ah!
And on that note, I think we'll leave it there. So there we go. Another brilliant episode. Thank you for coming in, Chaz. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Been a
This has
pleasure,
been
yeah.
brilliant. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe to this channel and comment below any suggestions of topics or activities you'd like to listen to in future episodes.
Yay! That's a big bugging in and bugging out goodbye from Buzz.
And that's a big...
Plan for the worst, hope for the best.
What he said. Goodbye from Zach.
And where's my backpack? Goodbye from me.
Yeah, he's bugging out right now.
You can find the Now We Know Show podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. Keep up to date with everything ZWP on Facebook and Instagram, or visit the Zak Wylde Productions website at www.zakwyldeproductions.com. And remember to join us on Patreon or become a YouTube member for early access content and exclusive episodes.